In the 1970s, Ibrahim Kaskar was a Mumbai police head constable with a reputation for rigid integrity. He was a man who famously never allowed a bribe to touch his uniform. Yet his own home served as the birthplace for a criminal enterprise that would eventually challenge the Indian state. His son, Dawood Ibrahim, rejected his father's principles early on. He was captivated by the local Bai culture, men who wore imported watches, drove expensive cars, and possessed the local authority to shut down entire markets with a single gesture. At the time, the Mumbai underworld followed the lead of bosses like Haji Mastan and Kareem Lala. These men treated smuggling as a regulated business, where violence was a last resort, preferring to keep the streets quiet to ensure a steady flow of illicit goods. Dawood represented a break from this cautious tradition. His approach to crime ignored the established boundaries of the old guard, favoring rapid expansion and an overt disregard for the rules of criminal restraint. At 20 years old, Dawood entered the Pathan gang under Kareem Lala. He was responsible for the logistics of moving smuggled gold, watches, and weapons, ensuring they reached secret warehouses without being intercepted by police or rival gangs. His first major break from the hierarchy happened during a ransom negotiation. After a customs officer intercepted a gold shipment, the Pathans kidnapped him and demanded 2 lakh rupees. Dawood collected the full amount, but kept a massive portion for himself, telling his superiors the family couldn't pay the full price. The deception failed. When the Pathan brothers confirmed the full amount had been paid through their own informants, they dragged Dawood before the gang. He was beaten so severely he couldn't stand, then publicly exiled from the organization. Immediately after this exile, Dawood recruited his brothers, Sabir, Iqbal, Anis, and Nora, to form an independent syndicate. This new organization, built on family loyalty rather than traditional gang subservience, became the foundation of D Company. The rivalry with the Pathan gang turned into an open war in 1981. While Dawood's brother Sabir was sitting in his car at a petrol pump, Pathan hitmen, including the notorious Manya Survey, opened fire, leaving Sabir's body in a pool of blood. Dawood planned a retaliatory strike against Amirzada, a key Pathan leader. However, Amirzada was in police custody and scheduled for a high-security appearance at the Mumbai Sessions Court. To bypass the security cordons, Dawood avoided using known gangsters. Instead, he employed David Pardesi, a young man with a thin frame and an innocent face who could easily pass for a college student, allowing him to walk past police checkpoints without being searched. Inside the packed courtroom, Pardesi approached the witness box and fired multiple rounds into Amirzada's chest, right in front of the judge. The execution triggered a massive stampede as police scrambled to secure the room. By striking inside a session court, Dawood signaled that state institutions were no longer neutral ground. The hit proved that the justice system offered no sanctuary, and that D Company could reach targets even under the direct protection of the law. Throughout mid-80s, Dawood utilized a network of expensive lawyers and a corrupt bail system to stay out of prison. By the time the Supreme Court issued a final arrest warrant in 1985, he had already fled to Dubai. From the safety of the Emirates, Dawood transitioned D Company into a multinational operation. He managed over 5,000 operatives in India through a remote system of international phone calls. He professionalized the syndicate by offering his hitmen corporate-style incentives. D Company covered all legal fees, paid for high-end medical treatments, and provided long-term financial support for the families of any member who was killed or imprisoned. This shift to Dubai effectively turned Dawood into a CEO. He was now physically and legally detached from the violence on the streets, allowing the syndicate to grow while he remained beyond the reach of Indian authorities. Internal friction within the syndicate grew as Dawood became increasingly paranoid about his lieutenants. He orchestrated the murder of their close ally's right-hand man inside a police lockup, a betrayal that triggered a permanent rift in the Mumbai underworld. In response, Arun Gali defected from D Company and turned his neighborhood, Dagdi Chal, into a fortified compound. He recruited unemployed youth and built an indoor shooting range to train them in the use of assault rifles for a direct war against Dawood. The conflict escalated when Ghali's shooters killed Dawood's brother-in-law. In retaliation, Dawood ordered his men to find and execute the injured assassin, Shailesh Haldunkar, who was recovering under heavy guard in a public hospital. D Company hitmen entered JJ Hospital with AK-47s and fired over 400 rounds inside a crowded ward. They killed Haldunker in his bed and 2 police officers in the crossfire, while doctors and patients scrambled for cover. The shootout at JJ Hospital demonstrated the total collapse of the underworld's unwritten rules. Public medical facilities were now treated as active combat zones, and the safety of innocent bystanders was no longer a factor in D Company's operations. The 1992 demolition of the Babri Masjid led to nationwide riots and a drastic shift in the Indian social landscape. For the criminal underworld, this unrest provided the ideological catalyst for a much darker transition. Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, approached Dawood in Dubai. They identified his existing smuggling infrastructure, a network of boats and corrupt port officials, as the perfect conduit for moving military hardware into India. The ISI offered Dawood permanent protection and expanded global business routes in exchange for his logistics network. Dawood agreed, providing the shipping routes necessary to move RDX explosives and heavy military-grade weaponry directly into the country. This agreement marked the point where the syndicate's primary function shifted. D Company was no longer just a criminal enterprise, it was now a logistics partner for a foreign state's covert operations. On March 12, 1993, that logistics network facilitated 12 coordinated bomb blasts across Mumbai. The targets were specifically chosen to paralyze economic hubs, including the Bombay Stock Exchange. The human cost of the terror attack was devastating, with over 250 civilians killed and thousands left with permanent injuries. The scale of the violence was unlike anything previously seen in the city's gang wars. The bombings caused an immediate ideological fracture within D Company. Top lieutenants, including Chhote Rajan, left the organization in protest, declaring a new war against the syndicate. Dawood Ibrahim currently lives in a high-security area of Karachi, under the protection of the Pakistani military. From there, he continues to oversee a global illicit empire that spans global shipping routes, massive real estate portfolios, and international narcotics trafficking. The evolution of D Company illustrates a critical systemic warning. Allowing localized corrupt street crime to embed itself into a city's infrastructure eventually builds the exact logistical foundation required for multinational terrorism.